Dear viewers, today we are going to discuss the theory of Orientalism. The theory of Orientalism is propounded by Edward Said in his book of the same name. It discusses the role of colonial discourses in certain cultural and historical contexts. According to Bill Ashcroft and Paul Alvulia, Orientalism pivots on a demonstration of the link between knowledge and power, for the discourse of Orientalism constructs and dominates Orientals in the process of knowing them. Therefore, Orientalism refers to the sum of the West's representations of the Orient and its powerful effects. It also discusses how Orientalism persisted into the late 20th century in the Western media reports of Eastern, especially Arab lands, despite formal decolonization of many countries. Some of the key concepts of Orientalism are as under. Number 1. Orientalism constructs binary oppositions. Orientalism makes the binary division between the Orient and the Occident or the West. The Orient is the alter ego or opposite side of the West. It serves to establish the superiority of the West over the Orient. If the West is the global seat of knowledge and learning, the Orient is a place of ignorance and stupidity. Thus, in the binary of Orientalism, the West occupies the central position, while the Orient is relegated to a subservient position. It implies that Orientalism, in part, provided the West with the means of fashioning an image of itself by presenting a false picture of the Orient. In this connection, David Richards significantly comments the representation of other cultures invariably entails the presentation of self-portraits, in that those people who are observed are eclipsed by the observer. Said is of the view that the Orient has been fundamental in defining the West as its contrasting image. He thinks that European culture gained in strength and identity by presenting the Orient as a sort of underground self. Number 2. Orientalism is a Western fantasy. Western views of the Orient are not grounded in reality, but based upon Western fantasies or assumptions about the Orient. Such assumptions distort the image of the Orient. Therefore, Orientalism is basically a fabricated construct. It gives rise to particular ways of seeing and thinking about the Orient. Its contrived idea of reality is in fact man-made. It imposes upon the Orient specifically Western visions of its reality. Number 3. Orientalism is institutional. The imaginative assumptions of Orientalism are often taken as hard facts. They constitute a whole academic and institutional infrastructure where opinions, views, and theses about the Orient circulate as wholly acceptable truths with tangible material effects. In this regard, Rana Kabani says the ideology of empire was hardly ever a brute jingoism. Rather, it made subtle use of reason and recruited science and history to serve its ends. According to Said, the Orient was suitable for study in the academy. It implies that Orientalism was far-reaching. It helped people of the West to formulate their own knowledge of the world and their superior place therein, across a variety of disciplines and within a number of institutions. Point number 4 reads, Orientalism is literary and creative. Orientalism not only penetrates a vast academic and institutional network, but also manifests itself through creative arts. In order to support this assumption, Said traces Orientalist overtones in different academic disciplines like philology, lexicography, history, biology, political and economic theory, novel writing, and lyric poetry. What is more, Orientalism is responsible for new genres that highlighted Western experience abroad, such as the heroic male adventure story popular during the Victorian period. Thus, a lot of literary works are influenced by the assumptions and stereotypes of Orientalism. Point number 5. Orientalism is legitimating and self-perpetuating. All the preceding points suggest that Orientalism is not just productive but reproductive. It perpetuates itself through literary and artistic representations. These representations are rooted in imperial structure of political domination. Orientalist representations serve to justify the propriety of Western colonial rule in foreign lands. They legitimate the domination of other peoples and lubricate the political and judicial structures which maintain colonial rule through physical coercion. Number 6. Latent and manifest Orientalism. In order to emphasize the connection between the imaginative assumptions of Orientalism and its specific examples and effects, Said borrows some terms from Sigmund Freud to distinguish between a latent Orientalism and a manifest Orientalism. Latent Orientalism comprises the dreams and fantasies about the Orient that remain relatively constant over time. On the other hand, manifest Orientalism refers to the myriad examples of Orientalist representations. According to Said, the manifestations of Orientalism may vary because of historical circumstances and individual perspectives, but their underlying latent premises will tend to be the same. For example, a Victorian travel writer and an Edwardian journalist might produce apparently different texts about the Orient, but their underlying assumptions about the binary between the Orient and West will remain same. Thus, latent Orientalism is like a blueprint, whereas manifest Orientalism is linked with many different versions that can be built from the same overall design. It implies that when a writer or painter makes an Orientalist representation, he draws upon a common set of assumptions, regardless of the different styles or forms he chooses. To conclude, it can be said that Orientalism is a Western fantasy which is far removed from reality. Moreover, it perpetuates itself through several different representations. The persistence of these representations implies that the imaginative machinery of colonialism kept operating even after the era of decolonization. Thank you very much.